Let me ask, how many honest people would admit that you sent a text message to the wrong person and it was not a message that they should have received? Anybody out there? Yeah, I won't even share my story about that. One of the worst things guys can do, is ask a woman if she's pregnant when she's not. Anyone? Any honest people want to admit to that one? A couple? Yeah. Okay. Well, I can actually one up that. A couple years ago, I ran into somebody unexpectedly. I was at an appointment, and I ran into somebody that I had known from my past, and we were kind of connecting. And the person showed me pictures of their past, and I looked at the picture, and I said, "Wow, you looked a lot younger." But I actually didn't say younger. I said bigger. Yeah. Neither one of those should have been said. And it was, take your foot out of your mouth and you're an idiot, right? But that's kind of what happens. When our words are out, once they're spoken, we can't take them back, can we? We can't take them back. And unfortunately, God gave us this button right here. We're familiar with this button, but we don't really use it. What we really need is this button right here, that we could go back and we could suck those words back out of the ether, right? I mean, if we could just pull them back in, but the problem is once they've been spoken, they're actually out. And we can all relate to that because we've all had moments in time when we've said things we wish we wouldn't have said things that we shouldn't have said at all, and we wish we could take them back. And so that is the reason for this series, Me and My Big Mouth. And as we've been talking about, this is primarily about me and it's about you. It's not about them and their big mouths or your brother-in-law or sister-in-law or, spouse and their big mouth. This is about you and your big mouth and me and my big mouth. And when we began this series a couple weeks ago, we talked about how our words are radioactive, which means they have a half-life. Once they're spoken, they don't just disappear. They don't just kind of float away. They live on, and maybe they lose some of their power over time, but they still have a power. And so we taught you an important phrase. Before you start to say a word, pause and ponder what will be heard. I got made fun of in the office for this, being told I'm like Dr. Seuss. That's okay. I will be made fun of every day if this is helpful to you, if it is helpful in helping you to remember to pause and ponder, stop and think, because our words are so powerful, because they come out so quickly, because we don't take the time to pause. And so last week we learned that it's to be quick to listen, slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to speak. In fact, I gave you a hand motion. Let's just all do it together. We're going to make your fist go open real fast when we say quick to listen. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Now, the reason for that hand motion is because when we hear words that are confrontational or words that are accusatory or words that kind of make us want to close up, that's what we do. We close our fists. We close our fists. We close our ears. We close our minds, and we just kind of shut down. And the invitation in those moments is to be quick to listen, to pay attention, because the thing is, the other person whose mouth won't stop running in those moments, they want the same thing that you want. They absolutely want the same thing you want. And it's not just that you would shut your mouth, it's that you would listen. They want to be heard, and maybe more importantly than being heard, they want to be understood. They want somebody to listen to their point of view, and that's exactly what you and I both want. If we could take time to understand before seeking to be understood. So we need to be quick to listen, slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to speak. If you missed either of those messages, I would encourage you to go to our website and check it out, or the church app is actually the easiest way. You can listen to messages and you can share them with anyone else. You can share series with other people, but again, don't forget, this is primarily about you and it's about me. Now, the point over the last several weeks, and really it's kind of the point today too, is that our words, they're powerful, aren't they? I mean, our words are so powerful, and that's not rocket science. Nobody's taking pictures of that screen and be like, oh, wow, that's so amazing. Where'd you come up with that, Seth? I mean, we've all figured that out. Our lives have been shaped by words. They've been shaped by words spoken to us, words that have been spoken over us, words that have been spoken about us. Whether it was from a friend or a mentor or a coach or a parent or somebody who kind of stepped into your life, a spouse. I mean, those words have shaped our careers, haven't they? They've shaped our marriages. They've shaped what we see when we look in the mirror. They've shaped our self-esteems, our self-images. They've shaped the way we parent. They've shaped the way we look at what success is and what we believe about ourselves. People with no confidence have been able to gain confidence because of words that have been spoken to them or over them or about them. And people who had all kinds of confidence lost it because somebody spoke words to them or about them or over them. Words are so powerful. And you know this, that words aren't equally weighted, are they? Words are not equally weighted. Years ago, when I became a pastor, I was a pastor of students. And as soon as that title was given to me, all of a sudden, my words in the lives of students, they just had more power than they did before. When I became a lead pastor, my words had more power around the office, not because I'm anybody special, but because the buck stops with me, right? Maybe they weigh 100 pounds. Men, your dads, your words weigh like 500 pounds in the lives of the kids. I can't explain why, and it doesn't matter if your kids are adults. Your words are so powerful. Spouses, your words weigh a lot too. They weigh so much. Parents, your words weigh so much on your kids, more so than other people's words. And here's another thing about our words. The recovery time of words isn't equally weighted either. This is kind of that radioactive piece that I was talking about. Some words, they last just so much longer. I can think of words, and my guess is you can do the same. I can think of words verbatim that were spoken to me in elementary school, that have shaped me, that I have thought about over the years. Words that, somebody makes a little comment on the side, and all of a sudden it brings back these things that have been a part of developing me into who I am. And it doesn't honestly matter how many compliments we receive in exchange for the hard words that have been spoken to us, right? I don't have a statistic about this because 97.2% of statistics are made up on the spot anyway, just like that was. But the truth is, it takes far more complimentary words than it takes negative words, right? It takes far more complimentary words to overcome the negative that has been spoken to us, because those negative words, they are just so powerful. Even when the other person says, I said, I'm sorry. That doesn't mean anything, does it? I said I'm sorry. What does this mean? When somebody says, I said I'm sorry, it means we should be all good now. You should forget all the hateful things that I just spewed at you. You should just let all that go because I said I'm sorry and we can move on. But the problem is this defies logic, doesn't it? It defies logic. When I was a freshman in college, I was stupid, just like most freshmen in college are. And we had a rule in our dorm that you weren't allowed to throw balls or frisbees. Well, what was I doing? I had a buddy of mine, we were throwing a frisbee in the hallway. And this kid walked out of the room right as I was throwing the frisbee, and it nailed him in the head. Oh, he was so mad. And I said to him, I said I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry. But it didn't take away the headache that he now had. If you shove me down a flight of stairs because you're angry at me and I break my arm and you say, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, the ramification, I didn't mean for that. Well, that's all well and good, and you may be truly sorry, but I still have a broken arm, and it's going to take a period of time to heal, and words take far longer to heal, don't they? Words take far longer to heal than the physical things that happen to us. That old phrase, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me, is a lie. It's a total lie. We all know that the emotional wounds from hurtful words take a long time to heal, if they heal. Which is why what we talked about last week was so, so important. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Your mouth has more destructive power than any other part of your body. It's so powerful, we don't even need to be in the same room anymore, do we? I mean, you can post something online with social media. I mean, you can demolish somebody with your words, and you don't even need to be in the same room. That's why what we're talking about is so very important. Now, last week I introduced you to a guy named James. James is the half-brother of Jesus, and we've kind of talked about James over the years and how amazing it would be to have Jesus as your older brother. I can't even imagine. And as we look at what James is going to say today, I think one of the things that could have been, and I don't know for sure, so this is a little bit speculation, but I think one of the things that could have been floating around in James's mind are the words that he spoke to his brother. to his brother Jesus, because in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we have record of Jesus' family being embarrassed by him. He's going out telling people he's the Son of God. You and I would be embarrassed if our sibling were doing that. And what words might have been spoken to him or about him or over him by his own family. And I just have to wonder if James was thinking that very thing as he wrote the words that we're going to talk about and look at today. Now, here's the thing that's true for every one of us, yourself, myself included, that our greatest relational regrets can absolutely be tied back to the words that we have spoken. And if we had taken James's words here to heart a little bit sooner and leaned into them a little bit sooner, chances are we could have avoided those greatest regrets. And so I think what we're looking at today is so practical. I hope it's so helpful. And so without further ado, here's James. James, beginning in chapter 3, verse 2, he said, "We all stumble in many ways." That's kind of obvious, and you can relate to that. This is the human condition. This is the human plight. We all struggle. All of us want to do what's right, or at least we say we do most of the time, but we all struggle to do what's right. We all stumble in many ways. And then he goes on and he says this. He says, "Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check." Now, what he's saying is that's a really unique person. Somebody who's never at fault in what they say, somebody who's able to control their mouth every single time. I mean, that is a remarkable person. In fact, that person is so remarkable, it's impossible, because we are all going to fail. Remember, he said we all stumble in many ways. Maybe the biggest way we all stumble is with our mouths. Okay, so it's impossible, but his point is that if we can gain control over this thing inside our mouths, we can actually direct our entire bodies in a different direction. It has control over our entire selves. But good luck doing it, because you're not going to be able to, because we all stumble in many ways. Sounds a little bit depressing, but here's the good news. Here's the good news. And if you're here today and you're kind of on the fence about Jesus and Christianity and you're not really sure what you believe, this is really what it all comes down to. That Jesus doesn't expect us to be perfect. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. If he expected us to be perfect, he never would have had to come to earth in the first place. If he knew we could be perfect, if we just tried a little bit harder, he never would have had to give his life for us. The thing we celebrated with the baptisms a few minutes ago. He never would have had to do this. But he never gives us permission to stop trying. He knows we can't be perfect. He doesn't expect us to be perfect, but he never gives us permission to stop trying. And the problem is, one of the areas in which we stop trying to be perfect, where we just kind of give up, especially I think Christians fall into this very often, is with our mouths. How many times do we gossip about somebody else in the form of a prayer concern? I just need to talk to you about somebody, and you can be praying about this situation. I just need to, we gossip, we use our words in ways that are demeaning and discouraging, sarcastic. I mean, it's just an area where we kind of give up trying to be perfect, and yet there's an invitation here for us. There's an invitation, because when we can gain control of our mouths, we can gain control of our entire selves. And so James is going to talk a little bit about that. Here's what he continues on to say. He says, when we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Now, I'm not a big equestrian person. I've ridden a horse once or twice, but you understand the idea when you put a bit in a horse's mouth. Now, for me, an equivalent would be the gentle leader with a dog. Anybody have a dog? Anybody familiar with the gentle leader? We've got this miniature golden doodle who is full of energy, and for the first year of his life, I was asking everybody I knew how to control the animal. And one day I was at our Greensburg campus for the oil change last fall, and there was a guy there with a dog similar, and I just said, and sitting there real nice, I said, you need to get a gentle leader, because what you do is you stick this through their muzzle and you strap it around their neck and you put it tight, and suddenly the dog just calms down. And when you can control the mouth, you can control the animal, and that's what James was talking about with a horse. His point is that as the bit determines the direction of the horse, so the tongue determines the direction of a person. Your tongue controls your life. It is so powerful, it will either make you or break you. And because it determines the direction of your life, it also determines your destination. It determines where you're going to go. It determines what's going to happen in your relationships. And when you're able to discipline your tongue, life will be better for you. Your relationships will be better. Life will be good. But when your tongue is undisciplined, that's when there is problem. So here's another example. James continues on. If the horse didn't make sense, he says, or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder, wherever the pilot wants to go. You can just imagine a large ship being driven by this small rudder. Now, a ship was one of the largest things in James's day that humans could build. And so here's kind of an idea of a Roman ship from this time period. There's a small rudder on the back that you can't see. This giant ship is moved by a small rudder. And here's the point. Small part, big influence. Small part, big influence, like the horse with the bit in its mouth. It's insignificant proportionally, but it has so much power. It can determine the direction of a massive vessel. So he continues on. He says, likewise, the tongue. Now, I don't know if you've spent a lot of time thinking about your tongue. It's not the most attractive part of your body, if I don't say so myself. Did you know your tongue isn't just one muscle? It's actually 8 muscles all working together. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? The average tongue's about 3 inches in length. Men's tongues are a little bit longer than women's tongues. It's called a muscular hydrostat. It's similar to an octopus's tentacle or an elephant's trunk. There are no bones. You can't break it. Though maybe we wish you could break your tongue, right? Because in fact, it's one of the only muscles that doesn't wear out. It doesn't get tired in your body. Again, I mean, some people do wish your tongue would get tired. I'm sure my wife wishes mine would get tired sometimes, but it doesn't work that way. It never tires. So he says, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body. I mean, it's so small, but it makes great boast. It's small, but it's insignificant. It has incredible power. It controls the direction of your life and mine. It controls the quality of our lives. It's so important and significant. Catch this. He goes on and says this. He says, consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. Now, this is easy to imagine because every year in the fall, right, some moron's doing a forest fire out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden California's on fire for the next 3 months. We know what that's like. In the Middle East, there weren't forests. In fact, the term that gets translated forest could be just wood, but they had bushes that were like tinder because it's such a dry climate. And here's what he's saying. He's saying that with just a small little spark, right? Just a small little spark, it turns into this. Thousands of acres and millions of dollars, all because of this. If only we could learn to control it. There's almost no logical correlation, is there? That something so small could be so very destructive. James says the tongue, he continues on, says the tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body, because our tongue can get us into so much trouble. But if we can control it, just like the rudder of a ship, just like a bit in the mouth of a horse, we will have control over the whole thing. Every kind of evil imaginable comes because of the tongue, doesn't it? Murders started because of tongue. Relationships fall apart because of somebody's careless words. Wars are started because somebody wasn't careful with what he or she said. And the message from James is that we are born with our pilot lights lit. He goes on, he says it corrupts the whole body. You know why? Because an officer doesn't arrest your tongue or your mouth, right? An officer throws you in jail. You don't divorce a tongue or a mouth, though you may want to. You divorce the person. You don't send a mouth to its room. You send the kid. You don't banish a mouth from a phone. You banish the kid, right? That's how it works. How many of you can honestly say your mouth has gotten you into trouble? Your whole body got into trouble, didn't it? It wasn't just your mouth. It was your whole body. Our mouth takes control, and it has the propensity for evil. He continues on, he says, if you don't control it, it corrupts the whole body. It sets the whole course of one's life on fire, because as your mouth goes, so your life goes. And just like that little spark starting a forest fire, it could burn down your life. Listen, I could burn down my life right now. I've got a microphone and I've got a big mouth. I could just let this whole strain of things come out here in this room, and your jaws would drop to the floor, and you would think to yourself, I can't believe they let him up there. And then next week, I wouldn't be up here. And somebody else would be up here, and they would say, we're really sorry for what Seth said last week, and don't worry, he won't be back, right? I mean, I could set my life on fire right now in these moments. Some of us have set our lives on fire because of the words that we've spoken. And the problem is, saying I'm sorry doesn't fix the scorched earth that we create with our dragon tongues, does it? Saying I'm sorry, I said I'm sorry, it just doesn't fix it. When we scorch the ones we love, what do? We defend ourselves, don't we? With more words. I said I'm sorry. You shouldn't be so sensitive. I can't be held responsible for what I said when I was hangry. I just needed to eat. I was tired. I drank too much, right? I mean, I just had a bad day. I'm really sorry. I didn't actually mean it. But the thing we all know is that even if you start a fire accidentally, you're still responsible. You are still responsible for the damage it creates. You and I, we are responsible for our careless words. We are responsible for the pain we inflict on other people with our mouths. James says this is the truth about the mouth. It corrupts the whole body. It corrupts the whole body. It sets the whole course of one's life on fire and is itself set on fire by hell. It's like you've got this evil receptor inside of you, and the devil is just waiting to take over it. It's just waiting to take over it. And the words that you said, carelessly, the words that you weren't thinking a whole lot about, they're not innocent, they're not harmless. If your words destroy, then they came from a destroyer, an evil one. Now, when James talks about hell, he's actually talking about a literal place. We're not talking about where the devil is, and I'm not saying that isn't a literal place, but he's talking about a place in Jerusalem, outside of the walls of Jerusalem, referred to as Gehenna. Now, that's the source of your dragon tongue. Now, in the Old Testament times, it was referred to as the Valley of Hinnom, and it was outside of the walls of Jerusalem. And there's this valley, and the Canaanites would go. They would offer sacrifices to Baal, their god Molech. They would offer child sacrifices in this valley. It was a disturbing place. In the days of Jeremiah, it was referred to as the Valley of Slaughter because the Babylonians would murder Israelites and throw them into this valley. And then during the time period of Jesus' days, kind of referred to as the Second Temple period, from the time the Old Testament ends to the time when Jesus was there, was referred to as the Valley of Gehenna, where trash was burned on a regular basis. Criminal bodies were thrown there, and it came to symbolize the root of evil. And what James is saying is that your tongue, its root, is evil. It goes on, he says, all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by humankind. He's not talking about domestication, but he's talking about, there's no Planet of the Apes scenario going to play out anytime soon, right? I mean, we've kind of subdued the ape world. We don't need to worry about a pack of wolves carrying off our children. That's not going to happen. You can go to the zoo and you can see lions and tigers and bears, oh my. You can see elephants, you can see, sharks, you can see every dangerous animal on the planet. We have subdued all of these things, all of these powerful creatures in captivity. But he continues and says, no human being can tame the tongue. That's how wild it is. That's how serious it is. The word can here means capable of. No one is capable of actually reining this in fully and completely. No one can tame the tongue, and your tongue is stronger than the wildest of animals. So if the tongue cannot be tamed, your tongue cannot be tamed, so it must always be guarded. We have to be careful. We have to watch it because it is capable. It is capable of so much damage. It can ruin relationships. It can ruin reputations. It can burn down your life. It can ruin those around you that you care about, that you care deeply about. He says it is a restless evil full of deadly poison. It is so powerful, so deadly, it should come with a warning label. And here's how unpredictable it is. He goes on, he says, with the tongue, we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Just a couple minutes ago, we were singing songs of praise, but let me ask you, what did you say to your family in the car on the way here? Or to your kids as you were trying to get them to hurry up and get ready for church? Or what did you say yesterday when you were doing something out and about in the yard or cleaning or at work on Friday when you were with your coworkers, right? With it, we cursed human beings, those people who are made in God's likeness. We sing praises and we curse others. Those for whom Jesus died, we bring our harshest, hardest words. He says this, he says, out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Should not, but it is. And within that is an invitation for every single one of us to what should be, because our words matter. How are you using your words? Praising God or destroying those around you? Or maybe both. He poses a rhetorical question next. He says, can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? You know the answer to that. No. But the tongue, it can do something unique, can't it? He just said, we sing praises to God, and yet we curse those who are made in his image. He goes on, he says, my brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. The answer is no, that doesn't happen. Listen, a thing, whatever is the product of a thing should represent the thing, and yet the tongue is unique in that it doesn't always represent the same thing. It's a little depressing. And the truth is we've all been guilty. And we all need to take responsibility. And so what he says next is so helpful. You know what he says next? The end. I mean, seriously, he just cuts off abruptly. It's kind of like, well, we're done here. Now that I've told you about how damaging and how painfully strong your tongue is and how you need to guard it and you need to watch it, but he doesn't give us any helpful advice. He doesn't give us any guidance. There's no application at the end of this whole thing. It's just kind of like, well, let's move on to something else now. We're finished here. So let's just pray and go home, right? Now that I've left you all cheery. No, I won't do that. Here's his point. Here's his point, that there is no once and for all solution for your tongue. You can't put a shock collar on it and shock yourself every time you say something you shouldn't say. You can't remove your tongue and put it out on a nature preserve so people can go look at that freak of nature out there. I mean, you can't do any of those things with your tongue. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, there are three words I just want to share with you that I think can be helpful as we kind of bring this series to a close, as we talk about the power of our tongues and what to do with our tongues. Because I think James's point is that it is so powerful, we need to learn to wield it right. And nobody gives us an instruction manual with our tongues, right? We're not born with an instruction manual. We have to figure this out. And so these are three things that I think will be helpful for us. It's remember, surrender, and confess. Remember, surrender, and confess. Remember how powerful your words are. I mean, truly, remember that your words are going to last longer than they're spoken. Your words are going to continue lasting in the minds of those you speak to. So often we think about the words that were spoken to us, that were hurtful to us, but the truth is we are on the delivering end of those words so often. So remember the power of your words. And remember how powerful your positive words can be. Remember, parents, that you have the opportunity to speak life into your children every time you interact with them. Remember, spouses, you have the opportunity to speak life into your spouse, boyfriends, girlfriends, and friends. I mean, we have the opportunity of speaking life. Now, speaking life doesn't always mean saying things that are easy to hear. It doesn't mean that we never confront. If somebody's life is on a crash course toward utter destruction, speaking life helps them to put on the brakes And it may say something that is difficult to hear, but saying the right thing in the wrong way with the wrong attitude at the wrong time is the wrong thing. Taking time to be quick to listen and slow to speak, seeking to understand, pausing, pondering what your words are going to do, thinking about the significance of them, and then with God's grace and through prayer, coming to a point of saying, now is the time for me to speak. Now is the time for me to say something that won't be easy to hear, but it's not because I'm trying to damage them. It's because I care deeply for them. That is the difference. So the second word is surrender. Surrender. Paul, in Romans chapter 12, talks about offering our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. And one of the things that I've started doing over the last couple of weeks, since I wrote this message and been working on this series, is just praying, God, take my tongue today and use it for things that are useful to you, that are honoring and praiseworthy to you. God, take my tongue, use my words to build others up rather than to tear them down. In fact, if you want a prayer that you can pray, simply, here's a simple one. Heavenly Father, help me to be quick to listen and slow to speak today. Help me to surrender my words to you. Help me to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak. Help me to use my words in a way that build others up rather than just tearing them down. And then here's the last one. It's the word confess. Because this is going to be a tension that we all live within. That was James's point, that there is no once and for all solution. So when we fail, which will happen, confess. And confession is bigger than just saying, I'm sorry. We toss around, I'm sorry, 300 times a day, don't we? It's almost meaningless. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're upset. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, 4 important words that have the potential of changing the direction of your relationship in a good way. It's, will you forgive me? I'm just telling you, there is something vastly different about these words than simply saying, I'm sorry. Years ago, when I was young and stupid, now I'm old and stupid, but then I was young and stupid, and I had a conversation with somebody at the church where I was working, and they were going through a rough medical situation, and I just said, not even trying to be hurtful, not trying to say something dumb, I just was dumb. And I said something that was really painful to them. And I worked with the person's mom. The mom came and talked to me, and she was all upset. And I just had to go and say, you know what? Will you forgive me? Will you forgive me? Do you know what these words require? They require humility. They require the ability to say, I took something from you and now I owe you. That's the whole concept. Forgiveness is a debtor thing. It's actually a finance term. And so having the humility to say, will you forgive me? It is a hard thing. It requires eating your words. And yet it is one of the most powerful things you can say to help bring healing and restoration for your careless words. And let's be honest, if you had had humility in the first place, you wouldn't need to say these words later. If you had paused and taken time to listen, if you were quick to listen and slow to speak, you probably wouldn't have said the thing that got you in trouble to begin with. But these words are so powerful in helping to restore what is broken and bring healing to your relationships. Remember, surrender, confess. Dads, your words weigh the most. I don't know why, but your words weigh the most in your kids' lives. Think about your words. Choose them carefully. Kids, your words matter to your parents, believe it or not. They do. Your words matter so much. They carry so much weight with your parents, and you can think to yourself, she's just my mom. She doesn't matter. No. She's more than your mom. She birthed you, you know? I mean, she carried you around for 9 long months. So just remember that your words are powerful with your parents. And your tone with your words is powerful too. Think about your tone. It makes a big difference. Ladies, we men, we like to appear macho and strong, but we have fragile egos. Just think about your words. Be careful with your words with us, right? And guys, we have an opportunity to build the women we care about around us up with our words. Women have been so dishonored by words in our culture. Let's be different. Let's be different and use honoring words with each other, regardless of where you are. And if you come from a background where it was just sarcasm and nastiness and cutting down and not building each other up all the time, and that's just kind of what you're used to, and those are the words you've used in your life, throughout your life, because that's just what you grew up with, well, guess what? You have the power to break the cycle. You do, by God's grace. When you surrender your mouth to Him, when you ask Him to step in and use your mouth for positive things, you will be shocked at how God will work through you and you can break that cycle. So let's use our words to build up. Rather than tear down, let's use our words to make a difference in other people's lives. Let's do unto others with our words what we wish they would do unto us, even if they don't do unto us. Right? I mean, that's the whole message of the gospel, to give to others, to restore what's broken, to do for others what Christ has done through us, a place of healing. Your mouth can't be tamed, but by God's grace, it can be controlled when we are willing to surrender and submit to Him. So let's be quick to listen, slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to speak. Before you start to say a word, pause and ponder what will be heard. And speak words of life. Speak words of life. And let's be part of helping to create a better place for our families, for our friends, for our community to exist. Because God has given us that power inside our mouths. Let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, this is such a hard thing. Every one of us can think of damage that we've done because of our mouths, because of our words. We have hurt those we care about so deeply. We have burned bridges. We have ruined relationships. We've torched lives who are people who are made in your image. Father, would today be a marking point of a difference? Would you move us in a different place today? Would you help our words to be restorative? Would you help our words to be healing? Would you use our mouths to build up others and to spread the hope that we have in you? For those who have just come from a background where it was sarcasm, criticism, sarcasm, I just pray your healing hand to be upon those people and that you would help them to move in your direction and to be a change agent in their families and their friendships. Father, take our mouths, take our words, let them be useful for building others up, that you would be honored and glorified. Thank you, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.